CCP's state media's statement calling for large-scale withdrawal of foreign investment is either foolish or bad faces severe criticism. After Belt and Road Summit, Chinese stock market plunges, insiders analyze the root causes. Has China missed the golden opportunity to surpass the United States? Analysis: Xi Jinping self-destructs the military-industrial faction, and the CCP has already collapsed. Rapid increase in withdrawal from the Chinese Communist Party. It's all covered in today's China Truths. CCP's state media's statement calling for large-scale withdrawal of foreign investment is either foolish or bad faces severe criticism. In the context of substantial foreign capital withdrawal from the Chinese market, the state media of the Chinese Communist Party has recently published an article emphasizing that foreign investment is inherently influenced by market forces and cannot remain entirely stable. It pointed out that despite the continuous interest rate hikes by the U.S. Federal Reserve, foreign businesses' investment activities are largely unaffected. Expecting that new investments in China would exhibit no fluctuations is deemed unrealistic. Therefore, calling for a massive withdrawal of foreign capital at the first sign of market turbulence is seen as either foolish or malicious. The article also noted that, given intense market competition, some foreign companies might find it necessary to exit the Chinese market. Alternatively, they may choose locations with lower cost structures due to increasing input costs or decide to invest in and establish factories in other countries for supply chain reasons, all of which are typical business decisions. During the first 3 quarters of the year, China saw the establishment of 37,814 new foreign invested enterprises, marking a year-on-year growth of 32.4%. This data suggests that China continues to hold substantial potential for attracting foreign investments. Hence, the idea that foreign companies are massively withdrawing from China contradicts economic principles and doesn't align with the actual situation. This article has sparked public criticism. One user commented, "I'm in Shanghai, which is probably the city in China with the most foreigners, many of whom work in China. To be honest, there are far fewer foreigners on the streets now, maybe only about 1/10 of what it used to be. Do you think foreign investments have withdrawn?" Another said, "I'm in Shanghai as well, and I'll give you 3 factors. 1. Fewer job opportunities in foreign companies. 2. Check out the vacancy rate in Lujiazui, a glitzy financial district in Shanghai. 3. Look at the office rental vacancy rate. 4. How many foreigners are there in the international metropolis of Shanghai now? Let's admit it. Heaven knows, earth knows, you know, and I know. But the relevant authorities don't know. I only know that most of Foxconn in Zhengzhou has left, and the 2 Mercedes-Benz factories in Beijing have also closed. A Japanese car brand in Guangzhou has also gone bankrupt. Many world-renowned companies have moved to Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam and India." A netizen remarked that China's economic development had relied significantly on Europe and the US over the past 2 decades. They weren't sure whether foreign investments were withdrawing or not. The netizen observed that there used to be numerous Taiwanese and Hong Kong businessmen in the Pearl River Delta, but now it's challenging to find even a couple. This area was once the world's busiest trading port, where ships had to wait in line to enter and exit. Nowadays, it's rare to see any ships waiting all day. This was an unprecedented situation for the netizen in the last 20 years. They also mentioned that without platforms like Douyin and Kuaishou, Chinese video sharing and live streaming platforms, which have provided opportunities for many unemployed people to earn a living online, the streets would likely be filled with a significant number of wandering and jobless individuals. After Belt and Road Summit, Chinese stock market plunges, insiders analyze the root causes. Following the conclusion of the Belt and Road Summit in Beijing on October 18, China, the 3 major A-share indices witnessed simultaneous declines at the opening, with the Shanghai Composite Index slipping below the critical 3,000-point mark. Meanwhile, the other 2 indices, including the Shenzhen Component Index, closed at 9,655.09 points, marking a 1.65% drop, and the Chinext Index experienced a 1.28% decline, closing at 1,913.7 points. All 3 indices reached their lowest points in the past 3 years. Market experts have delved into the various factors contributing to this trend. Mr. Liang Xiaohua, former chief compliance officer of a mainland asset management company, suggests the stock market serves as an economic barometer, and investors understand that confidence is integral to investment. Breaking through the 3,000-point threshold signifies a shattering of the expectations that have been developed over the past decade. A drop below 3,000 points is seen as piercing the bedrock of the Chinese economy. In the Chinese capital market, the 3,000-point level is considered a critical dividing line between a bear and bull market. Each time it drops below this threshold, the Chinese Communist Party typically introduces a series of measures aimed at stabilizing the market and pushing the index back above 3,000 points. Starting from 2007, Mr. Liang discussed the stock market's fluctuations over the past decade. In detail, in 2007, the stock market surpassed the 3,000-point mark and, prior to the 2008 Olympics, it skyrocketed to 6,000 points. Many analysts at that time projected we would reach 8,000 points, and we would never see 3,000 points again in our lifetime. During that period, due to the stock market's rapid surge, activities such as goods imports and exports, as well as GDP, were in a phase of swift growth. In 2012, when Xi Jinping came into power, there was optimism in the stock market and capital markets, and this optimism persisted for a few years until 2015. During this time, People's Daily declared that 4,000 points marked a new starting point, and it should further rise to 5,000 points. However, after 2015, the stock market endured a prolonged bear market. Mr. Liang noted that from 2015 until the present, the stock market has broken through the 3,000-point threshold on multiple occasions. This time it occurred following the conclusion of the Belt and Road Forum. No one anticipated that Xi Jinping would announce an additional 780 billion yuan, approximately $106.6 billion, in financing and funds for the Belt and Road's unfinished projects. This substantial investment declaration implies the intent to see the Belt and Road projects through to completion. This has left people with a profound sense of hopelessness, prompting capital to express its views through actions. If you invest significantly, you'll witness my response. Consequently, the Shanghai Composite Index rapidly dropped below the 3,000-point mark. Since the commencement of the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, the CCP has invested over $1 trillion in various development and investment projects in 150 countries, encompassing the construction of infrastructure such as roads, bridges, ports, and power plants. Nonetheless, many of these investments have not yielded the expected returns. Countries including Venezuela, Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sri Lanka, and numerous African nations have approached Beijing to discuss debt restructuring, deferring debt payments, or seeking relief from substantial loans due to economic challenges. According to Mr. Liang Xiaohua, the investment of $1 trillion on the Belt and Road Initiative, apart from winning support from underdeveloped authoritarian nations and securing votes at the United Nations, the economic returns do not justify the investments. It's challenging to measure investment returns, including loans, and many investments have proven to be fruitless, much like attempting to carry water with a bamboo basket. There's been little to no economic return in economic terms. It's essentially turned into a failure. Currently, China's economy is deteriorating. The real estate market has collapsed, land finance is struggling, foreign trade is declining, pensions are going undistributed, civil servants are facing wage cuts, and unemployment rates are rising. These are crucial issues that demand the government's special attention. However, top-level leadership continues to spend extravagantly on grandiose displays. On October 21, a mainland entrepreneur, Mr. Huang, told the Epoch Times that the Chinese government is lavishly splurging huge sums to attract developing countries, partnering with rogue nations. Many ordinary citizens are profoundly disillusioned with the government. He said, because Chinese citizens are currently enduring very hard times, even civil servants are experiencing salary reductions, and numerous regions are reducing their workforce. Local governments are deeply indebted. In this situation, when another 780 billion is invested, where does it position the Chinese economy? What happens to the Chinese people? This can clarify why the Chinese stock market is witnessing a significant downturn. Mr. Huang believes that Chinese stock investors have lost all trust in the government. The government is behaving as if it is entirely disregarding the lives of its people. Numerous students are unable to afford breakfast or education. Many individuals cannot access medical care. Some resort to suicide due to unaffordable medical expenses, and others cannot sustain their livelihoods due to continuous stock market losses. Our government doesn't appear to be focused on revitalizing the economy or bolstering the confidence of ordinary citizens. Instead, it is channeling funds abroad, which the international community looks down on this government. The CCP has made mistakes in both domestic and foreign affairs. Mr. Huang has raised a critical point, stating the CCP's current foreign policy has left China isolated on the global stage. Additionally, the close relationship between China's top leadership and Russian President Putin, who faces criminal charges in international courts, could result in his trial there. Engaging with entities like the Taliban and Hamas, both considered rogue actors, will likely lead to further international isolation for China. Capital outflows are expected, and Chinese companies may encounter significant challenges with exports and foreign trade orders. Mr. Huang further noted that China's domestic policies have regressed, resembling a return to a planned economy era. Both foreign and domestic investors are losing confidence in China. Essentially, its domestic and foreign policies have been misaligned, and this explains the recurrent dips of China's A-shares below the 3,000-point mark. Currently, the Chinese government is increasingly intervening in the stock market. When stocks are plummeting, sales are restricted, and only purchases are allowed. State-owned capital, including the China Investment Corporation and state-owned securities fund companies, are instructed by the government to stabilize the market during bearish periods. This approach has been consistent. Therefore, Mr. Liang's outlook is even bleaker. He said, over time, the stock market's influence may diminish. This could include reduced financing, trading activity, and the number of companies going public. The stock market and the Chinese capital market may ultimately lose its significance. Has China missed the golden opportunity to surpass the United States? As reported by Yahoo Finance, China has experienced continuous growth and economic prosperity over the past few decades. However, there are now growing signs that China's economic miracle may have reached its limits, and the path to further growth in the coming years will be more challenging. But does this signify that China has missed the opportunity to surpass the United States? Let's delve into the details. China's economic development model. When adjusted for inflation, China's per capita gross domestic product, GDP, has seen a remarkable rise, increasing from $293 in 1985 to over $12,000 in 2021. This remarkable economic transformation has been made possible by factors such as population size, exports, and significant capital investments. China's extensive population, which was the world's most populous until India recently surpassed it, has provided a source of affordable labor for manufacturing a substantial volume of exported goods. Simultaneously, the government has made substantial investments in infrastructure to support this export-oriented growth model and enhance living standards. However, in recent years, China's economic focus has shifted from an export-driven approach to one centered around consumption and debt. This transition comes with its own set of risks. There are still tough battles ahead. China's recent trade tensions with the United States, which began during the previous administration and have persisted under President Joe Biden's leadership, have disrupted a crucial trade relationship that has been a cornerstone of the economic miracle for roughly the past 40 years. In the meantime, data from the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics reveals that wages in China have been rising rapidly, thereby closing the gap between Chinese workers and their global counterparts. China saw a 14.5% year-on-year decline in exports as of July. Earlier this year, Beijing announced a meager 3% projected economic growth for 2022, marking the slowest pace since the mid-1970s, excluding the COVID-19 affected year 2020. One of the most substantial threats to China's economic outlook is its heavy reliance on the real estate sector. Traditionally seen as a secure method for Chinese citizens to save and preserve their wealth, residential and commercial real estate now constitutes 25% of the nation's economy. A sharp decline in property values and the potential collapse of major developers like Evergrande could spark a debt crisis. Considering these developments, geopolitical analyst Peter Zeihan believed that China may require another decade before facing significant internal unrest and economic decline. Global implications. China's economic growth over the last few decades has endowed it with substantial geopolitical influence, and its decline will reverberate throughout other regions of the world. This suggests that the shift of trade, finance, and geopolitics centered around the United States may extend beyond initial expectations. The United States boasts a per capita GDP of $75,269, nearly 6 times that of China. The economy recently grew by 2.1% in the last quarter, with projections of stability through 2033. The US dollar continues to dominate international trade and business, while China's economic activity accounts for 12.4% of global economic output. Predicting the future of the US or Chinese economy is challenging due to the potential impact of abrupt geopolitical shifts or groundbreaking technological advancements. China does retain the opportunity to outpace its major competitor. However, in line with existing forecasts, this prospect seems unlikely. Analysis: Xi Jinping self-destructs the military-industrial faction, and the CCP has already collapsed. In recent months, China has witnessed significant political upheaval, including the sudden leadership change in the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force and the unexplained disappearance of Defense Minister Li Shangfu. This period has also seen the purging of prominent figures in the defense industry, with high-profile individuals like Liu Shiquan and Yuan Jie reportedly taken away for investigation. These events coincide with a major purge in the aerospace and defense sector, as revealed by former Peking University law professor Yuan Hongbing. Simultaneously, there have been the detentions of military officials, including 2 major generals and other high-ranking figures, suggesting internal strife within the Chinese Communist Party. Columnist Du Zheng, in an analysis for Taiwan's Up Media on October 22, contended that high-ranking CCP officials who have been removed, particularly those from the political and legal system and the military, may not have been purged solely for corruption but, more importantly, for disloyalty to Xi Jinping. In March of the previous year, Xi Jinping warned officials at the Central Party School against being two-faced, aligning with forces against the party, or harboring separate political ambitions while pretending loyalty. Official pronouncements from Xi Jinping's regime accused many officials of being two-faced and disloyal to the party, implying that they held different political loyalties. The author posits that despite Xi Jinping consolidating his power at the CCP's 20th Congress and his Xi family army taking control, as an authoritarian leader, Xi remains vigilant. In this context, Xi Jinping's emphasis on struggle and self-revolution has become a form of infighting within the so-called Xi family army. This includes the military-industrial faction cultivated by Xi, which has inevitably become the target of this purge. The full extent of these purges remains uncertain, and China's political environment is increasingly secretive, with limited public information and notable officials disappearing from the public eye. This opacity has led to speculations that the situation may be more severe than initially apparent. Columnist Du Zheng believes that, if we look at the situation where a collective of military generals and top military-industrial officials are falling, it's apparent that the Chinese Communist Party has already suffered a major collapse. In this situation, the Chinese Communist Party's saber-rattling towards Taiwan is likely a case of a paper tiger, appearing strong externally but internally weak. Rapid increase in withdrawal from the Chinese Communist Party. The recent wave in withdrawals from the Chinese Communist Party has surged quickly. As of 2:45 p.m. on October 23, based on updates from the Global Service Center for quitting the Chinese Communist Party, a total of 420,804,309 individuals have officially declared their withdrawal from organizations associated with the CCP. The peaceful Quit the CCP movement was inspired by a series of articles called the 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party, which were published in the Epoch Times in November 2004. These articles exposed the atrocities committed by the CCP. This movement has afforded Chinese people across the world the opportunity to break free from the extensive propaganda machinery of the CCP and liberate themselves from nearly 75 years of oppressive rule that deprived the Chinese population of their spiritual heritage and basic human rights. The CCP has killed an estimated 80 million Chinese through multiple campaigns, such as the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, and the Tiananmen Square massacre, as well as the ongoing persecution of Christians, Uyghurs, Tibetans, and Falun Gong practitioners. The figure of 420 million is remarkably impressive and represents an immense effort by volunteers, who are Falun Gong practitioners. This peaceful practice group has faced relentless persecution by the CCP since July 1999. Over the past 19 years, beginning with the launch of the Quit the CCP movement in 2004, these volunteers have persistently shared the truth with Chinese citizens, both within China and abroad, to help them understand the cruel nature of the CCP, withdraw from it and its affiliated organizations, and seek a better future. On October 15, Falun Gong practitioners in Philadelphia's Chinatown held a rally to celebrate the participation of over 420 million people in the Quit the CCP movement. Some local officials expressed their support and attended the event. Pennsylvania State Representative Mary Isaacson issued a citation expressing that the Quit the CCP movement has presented the international community with a renewed vision of a world without communism through peaceful means. She added that the House of Representatives support the Quit the CCP movement and congratulate the 420 million brave Chinese people who have severed their ties with the CCP for the positive step to secure their own future, who also will help to usher in a new age in China, which will improve the security of the whole world. Mizzy Rong, president of the Global Service Center for Quitting the CCP, emphasized the significance of 420 million people quitting the CCP. She stated, "The CCP is about to collapse. We hope this message can inspire more Chinese people to join the wave of quitting the party, and the CCP can be swept into the garbage heap of history." Simultaneously, the rally aimed to raise awareness about the CCP's persecution of Falun Gong practitioners and the heinous practice of live organ harvesting that has continued for 24 years without signs of stop. The rally received public support. Pennsylvania State Senator Sharif Street called for an end to organ harvesting practices, urging a move away from an undemocratic regime. A Chinese-American Daniel Mark condemned the CCP's evil practice of forced organ harvesting, describing it as demonic, horrible, and barbaric. He emphasized the necessity of abolishing the regime, stating that the Chinese people must rise up and seek a peaceful revolution if possible. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice introduced in China in 1992. By the end of the 1990s, an estimated 70 million to 100 million people in China were practicing Falun Gong, which promotes the principles of truth, compassion, and forbearance and includes 5 meditative exercises. However, in 1999, then CCP leader Jiang Zemin launched a widespread campaign to eradicate the practice. Followers of Falun Gong were kidnapped, detained in concentration camps, subjected to torture, and even killed for their organs. This persecution has been extensively documented by international human rights organizations and media outlets such as the Epoch Times. Don't forget to comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. If you find the information helpful, please share this video with a friend to watch together. This will be a great source of motivation for our team to produce more and more quality and reliable videos. And also don't forget to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths. Thank you for tuning in.